Okay. So yeah, Neetu, Anita, thanks for joining this session. So what we're going to talk about in this session is going to be this movie called Knock Down the House, which is available on Netflix. And for anyone who's kind of interested in the political process in India, though of course this is set in the US, I think it's a very good movie to watch. I won't say it's a great documentary or anything, but it's definitely watchable and it's quite short. So, one of the things that I would like to encourage people who haven't watched this movie and are watching this video is actually to kind of watch this documentary. Okay, so having said that, now I think what I want to start off with are just a couple of observations from the movie that I had, and we'll again go around so that you know it's just like a discussion about the movie. So my first observation was that there was this concept where there was an organization which they called the Brand New Congress. So basically, this organization, from what I could get from the movie, and it would be interesting to see Anita's and Neetu's take, was that this organization, the Brand New Congress, had started with an assumption that in the American political system, uh, quite a few leaders were taking money from special interest groups or what are called political action committees. And they were losing connect with the people on the ground and not representing their interests, right? So they were representing the interest of corporates or whoever gave them the money. So that was particularly evident in that case in West Virginia or something like that, where there was this lady who was who was a coal miner's daughter, and she was trying to run against the senator who basically had taken money from coal mining interests and was more or less representing the coal miners. Now, that's not to say that that senator was doing anything wrong, because maybe the coal mining thing is quite a complex issue. But that was the interest of this brand new Congress, that they were saying, we don't care which political party you want to stand from, whether it's Democrat or Republican, or you want to stand as an independent, but we want to help you do this. And the last thing there was that what they ended up doing was they did a crowdsourcing campaign. So like the crowdsourcing campaign was they somehow let people know, and then they could get nominations from all over. And they got some 10,000 nominations, at least that's what the movie says. And then they had some process of seeing which of the people are serious and would possibly be good people for them to spend time with. I don't think they were giving them any money, but this brand new Congress was actually coaching them. So like they were like a coach to get, and at least in the movie, it seems there were 20, 30 people at least that they finally picked out of the 10,000. So I think the concept of this brand new Congress is interesting to discuss, and the 10,000 and the 30 and the approach they followed, and whether there are any implications on that for India. And as we think about, helping elect good leaders. So that I'll pass it on to Neetu first and then Anita.
So I think it was an amazing movie. I never heard about this movie. So thank you for that. And this organization, which is a brand new Congress, this is the organization I feel that you and Anita should be really thinking about, at least nurturing, if not actively starting, because people, there'll be so many people, Sanjay, who are who are wanting to get a political, who are wanting to lead, who can lead, but they just don't know where to start. And so one is the organization. It was, I didn't even know that such an I don't know, is this a documentary? So this is all reality.
Oh, this is all real. Yeah, absolutely.
It's all real. all real. So number one, the organization itself was a highly motivated, bright, bushy-tailed young volunteers, or I don't know about the financial aspect, how they were being paid, but totally committed, totally politically savvy, and reminded me very much of the Indian youth, which is exactly politically motivated, and they just don't have any role models to do anything. And the second thing was that once they picked up these candidates who they thought were serious about doing something, then they actually volunteered to almost groom them, help them, be a part of their team, whether it's taking them for door to door, eliciting their support. And I think that, if I'm not wrong, what I understood was that this was an organization which was pitting fresh leaders or fresh people who wanted to be elected against incumbents. So against a politician who is just there because there's no one standing against him, there's no choice. So like the lady who finally won in New York, if you saw the way the incumbent, I don't remember his name, but the way he was almost patronizing, oh, that you're wonderful, it's so great that you're trying this,
Right.
little did he know that he would lose. So I'm saying that I think that it is just who are entrenched in the political business, it's a correct word. They just cannot imagine that there'll be a fresh person who could come and topple them. And I think that this gave you hope that if it's being done, it's a possibility. So that was my take from the film.
Yeah. So Anita, what is your take?
Yeah. So for me, yeah, clearly we need something like a brand new Congress, which helps good leaders stand, right? Because I think this is a really difficult area where, like you said, that you've been thinking about this for a while but never really knew how is it going to happen, right? So I think good people will stand if there's some kind of an organization that does all these, like the whole workbook available for them is like part of that team, as long as they fit a certain criteria, right? So I think there's need for organization like this. I had many takeaways, not so much from the organization, but from the I mean, overall, like one of the quotes that I really liked was for one of us to make it through, 100 of us have to try, right? So clearly, I mean, they also just got one person elected. But I think going forward, they will have multiples because that learning for them must have been immense, right? So I think it was a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
That the other thing that I particularly liked, another quote actually, was that the person I'm running against is complacent, but I am not. So now, if you look at OCA's
AOC, not
yeah, AOC's competition, this Crowley was like a long-standing, very well-known politician, but he was super, super complacent. I mean, even I think he just showed up for one debate, the last debate, right? And even then, he was so disconnected, I thought, right? And in my opinion, he was focused on becoming the speaker, this, that, and the other. And here was a person very focused on the local issues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think there are many learnings from this which apply to India.
So I have another question. So if we were trying to apply this for to the Indian context, right? So the other thing that struck me, and what Neetu also mentioned, was this thing about who are the people who started this brand new Congress, right? I think we need to do a little bit more research. which we can find out. That's not a problem. We could find out quite easily and see whether it still exists, and we could even contact them, because they might be very willing to help.
Yes.
If saying that hey, we were trying to do this in India, we want to learn from you because we don't want to reinvent the wheel,
Exactly.
right? So my guess is that they were quite some people who were kind of NGO type people, who were activists, who wanted to make a change in the political process. And they probably, here I'm guessing, is that they got funded from organizations that fund such activity, like there are many foundations, etc. And the same thing can easily happen in India, that, there may be people like the Omidyar Foundation, there may be other foundations, etc., etc. Now, of course, because it's a political thing, there may be some considerations. But, I think with a little bit of digging, there could be the Azim Premji Foundation, and so on and so forth, that could fund such activities. And therefore, I think the concept of this, and if it is, so what form this should have, because the other thing which was mentioned there was Justice for Democrats. Right. So the difference between Brand New Congress and Justice for Democrats, these were the two organizations which were mentioned, was that the Justice for Democrats had its motivation saying that how could the Democratic Party lose to Donald Trump? How could Hillary Clinton lose to Donald Trump? And they were said that that's because the Democratic Party has lost touch with the masses, and they wanted a person from the masses to stand, okay, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and they wanted her to, people like that to stand and go up against the ossified people in the Democratic Party, right? So India, of course, does not have a primary system, right? And the whole ticket allocation is another ball of wax. But it's quite possible that in the playbook that we are thinking of, that there may be a person who says, look, I'm going to stand because I'm really committed to this cause, and I want to be a good leader, and I want to represent the people in my constituency. Okay. Then this question of when they start, and is also very important. So if you see in the movie, it was at least 1 year before the primary, right? That Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was actually selected by this Brand New Congress, and they started helping her. And she also started finding a campaign manager and then starting the work. And, also, I think she approached the thing very intelligently, which is why she won. Okay. And it's also interesting to see what one can learn from AOC and what can one learn from the other three people who are featured in the movie who lost, right? So that's another interesting analysis. I have my own take on it, but I think we'll discuss that as we go along in this discussion, and let's see what we come up with. So I'll give my take last. But so on this point, the Justice for Democrats. So it could be, like there could be an organization saying Brand New Lok Sabha or whatever, in there, which says, we just want a better Lok Sabha. We don't care which political party. We are open to working with people from all political parties or independents, etc. Or there could be, and it could be multiple. I mean, one that says, no, we want to only help independents, because we don't feel that the existing political parties can reform very much, and we want to have more independence in the Lok Sabha, and we want more independents to win. Then there could be, okay, there's going to be a new political party. Then there could be also saying that it could be the Congress, right? So a lot of people feel that the Congress is in trouble, and we need a credible opposition. So, how do you kind of revive the Congress in terms of that? Or there could be some people on the Aam Aadmi Party or whatever. So we are not ruling out anything, according to me, right? It's like just getting the thing out there. It doesn't have to be one thing. We, at least I think Anita and me want to be catalysts and say how much, whatever makes sense, because our thing is more the merrier in some ways, because
No, and I
yeah,
think you want to be all inclusive, but you want to be all inclusive of people who want outcomes, basically. If
yeah,
you have certain political affiliations, like and things, that's a separate story. I mean, I don't think we should be closed-minded on political affiliations, but that's my thinking. I mean, I don't have strong views on any of this.
Hmm.
Because a
Yeah.
person might feel that, look, I don't want to stand as an independent. One is
So, yeah, but Anita, so I'm saying that let's say that you spoke about Nirith Alva. Am I saying the name right?
No,
So let's say Nirith,
no,
no, Nikhil.
oh,
Nikhil, sorry, Nikhil. So Nikhil, or, let's say it's me, or it's another two people, and we are a part of this forum and discussion. I mean, we can stand as independents. We can all come together to form another political party. We could join an existing political party, but the existing political parties number in my mind 3: BJP, Congress, and the Aam Aadmi Party, to a large extent. Now, what I'm saying is that joining them, does that mean that dilutes our stand? Was that the reason why we actually, because would it be business as usual? Would we be bullied? If I'm part of the Congress, would I be bullied to toe their line and then lose my voice? So, lot of things to think about. Or if you start another political party, political group, and campaign together from various parts, would there be strength in numbers? Let's say there are even 3 of us, um, so I'm saying that things to think about, nothing to be ruled out.
yeah. I think that's the thing. So one of the reasons we are recording this and putting it out is also that other people can think about this, because we don't have a monopoly on trying to elect good leaders,
No.
right? So we want more and more people to think about this, get involved, because we think India needs good leaders, the world needs good leaders, and we can collaborate with whoever is interested in this, and who knows what will come out of it.
Yeah.
Right. So Anita, any comments?
No, I mean, so far I'm with it.
Okay, so then let's move on to this. So now, so in the American context, I think one of the things that seems to be there is that they had this thing saying that we are not going to take PAC money, right? Like, because that was the thing which sort of would resonate and give them a USP. Okay.
We
At
would
least
not take PAC money?
so political action committees or
Okay.
these special interest groups, who basically give you a lot of money for your campaign, but then they have an agenda. So like in America, you have the gun control group, the National Rifle Association, NRA, etc., etc. So there are lots of lobbying groups which don't want like gun control laws to be too stringent. So they have then there's Planned Parenthood, then the corporate interests.
Tobacco.
Yes, all kinds of things, right? So good, bad, like the oil companies, and see, it's not all necessarily bad, but it's basically they have an interest, right? And it's a thing which is quite open. I would call it in some ways ethical lobbying, some ways not so ethical lobbying. So all that goes on. But basically, so this group had this thing saying that, look, the USP of our people is that they're not going to take this PAC money. So we want to get you involved in the political process. So you have to give us money. So this is very similar to this one note, one vote concept that we were talking about. But at least my view is going to be that there may be some organizations, etc., which do want to get involved in the political process, and as long as it's disclosed and it's not very high, the amount of money in there, and it's very clear that the candidate says, for instance, like this example that Anita talks about, Asian Paints or whatever, where they feel that if there is a political candidate which is going to beautify their constituency, and that involves paint, and that would be something that would help Asian Paints, and they want to contribute a small amount to that person's campaign, I don't see anything very wrong with that, but would love your views, and Anita.
So yeah, Anita, I'll go after you.
Yeah. So no, I definitely think it's fine as long as there's transparency and there is a cap, right? Because um, if you don't have a cap to the amount of money that one particular organization can contribute, then if one organization is contributing 80% of the funds collected, I think, they are going to become your political master to an, and it's going to be very hard to differentiate. So I think capping it is important. I don't think you should exclude.
Yeah, and so I agree. And sorry, Neetu, did you have any comments?
Yeah, so I agree, capping it, making it visible for all to see that we have got 25,000 rupees from Asian Paints and this list of people. Having said that, I'm wondering whether if you take money from Asian Paints and you do want to use paints afterwards to beautify your area and you go in for Nerolac, would that
So very good point. Yeah.
I mean, so what is your what are you saying when you take money from them?
Yes, great point. Because so the thing being that, look, if the paint company says, look, when we're giving you this money, we're giving it you because we feel that you're going to increase the demand for paint. But it will be a normal tendering process, right? Like in there, and you will disclose that, and you may not even be part. Like most likely, the politician is just an influencer, is not part of the decision-making process on who gets the contract, right? For paint, right? And so the politician and their team. So the very important part is that also all this money which is raised, right, by the political candidate, and then later maybe the politician who's got elected, there should be a full accounting of it.
Absolutely.
Right? And because see, the point is that if you really want to do a good job, you need to recruit people in your team, and you need to pay them. You need to have an office, right? Like you need to say that these are the kind of contracts which are going to be there. These are the kind of things. And then you need communication, right? Like you need to communicate to your constituency and get communication back. So you need field workers. You need a very good office staff of excellent people, maybe young people who ultimately want to run for political office. So at least that's the way I think it works. And it also works in India. Like, I mean, like, I know some young people who have interned with MPs, right? Like, so it's not so much at the MLA level and the MLC level, which I think it should be, but there are people who intern with MPs, and actually all the bills which come in the Lok Sabha, they help the MPs understand the bills so that they can vote properly and all that kind of stuff. So it's there partially in India, but I think from my knowledge, and my knowledge is weak, but it can be improved, is what I think. Right?
Yeah.
So moving on, unless someone else has any comments. So one thing which struck me was, of course, this whole part about how long before the actual election you have to start, right? And how much work you have to do, right? And how many people you need to get, probably in a volunteer capacity and maybe a paid volunteer capacity, whatever. But there are people who are also there because they're passionate about the cause. But it's not good enough being passionate, right? Because you also have to run your home. Yeah? Your chula has to burn, right? Like, so, so it has to be something which is this thing, right? So yeah, so we already talked about that Paula Jean Swearingen. So I think one of the reasons she lost, right? So there were, if you really look through the movie, of the four people, so there was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, this Paula Jean Swearingen, and then that Amy Viella, and some Cruz or something, right? I forget the last name. So there were these four people. Now, that Paula Jean and that Cruz, though they lost, they got 30% of the vote, right? So they managed to get quite a large number of votes. That Amy Viella did not get much votes. She stood from Las Vegas, right? And little bit that I could see from the movie was that so this Paula Jean Swearingen's thing did resonate a little bit, but she was running on the single agenda of trying to say that I'm going to be, at least from the movie, that I'm a coal miner's daughter and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to go against this guy who's selling our state off to coal mining interests. They show this little clip about how she's organizing a meeting. But to me, her agenda was too
Narrow.
too narrow. And it wasn't talking about, okay, fine, we look at that. But how is West Virginia going to develop, right? So it wasn't, at least to me, seeming that it was very balanced, right? And that was this. Now, the other one, that lady who was the nursing, registered nurse type of thing, who was also talking about this African American thing where somebody got killed, and she was very upset about that. And then she seemed to me to be a little more balanced and had quite a few things going. And later on, I was doing a little bit of research on this, and she is now part of the Congress. Okay, so
Really?
she's got elected. Yeah, yeah. So that Cruz is in the latest elections, she seems to have got elected. Okay. So this is also very refreshing, saying, okay, you keep working on it and you have a problem and you learn, and it may take you a couple of elections to get elected, but you do get elected, right? So that, and the last one, that Amy Villela or whatever, and I think this Paula Jean Swearingen is still involved in the political process. I don't think she's got elected, but she's still trying, and she's done better and better. Maybe she'll get elected at some point in time, right? So it's a process. You can't just give up, like is what I think. The last one, the one who lost her daughter because she didn't have insurance and, thing. So she did very poorly, right? Like, so it's not mentioned in the movie how many percent vote that she got, but she got, I think, 9% of the vote, or fairly low number of votes in the whole thing. And I think she is no longer very active in the political process from what I could see. So that is another thing that, if you have, and she was campaigning on what could be a very emotive issue, which was trying to say that, why do, like, there should be, insurance should be a thing that every person should have in America and all. And there are lots of people who support it, right? But it was not enough, and in a place like Las Vegas, right? Like, which is probably not. So, so this thing about, to me at least, the learnings were that you have to be really very smart, and very conscious about how you go about if you're going to win. And you have to be persistent. Yeah, the other name was Cory Bush, the thing. Okay, so yeah, so these were, so any thoughts, Neetu or Anita?
No, I mean,
Well, my thought was that the Alexandria, the one who won, what I was impressed by was how well prepared she was. Every time she came out into the public, with or without Crowley, and especially when she was sharing the stage with him. I mean, she had her homework done completely, which is a learning, which is something which there's no. You need to be so well prepared. You can't just say, employment has gone down or this one is happening. You need to know your figures, and you need to know that this guy who's been in the past seat for 20 years or 14 years, has anything really changed under him? So a lot of background study on the performance of your political opponents, that is important, and because sometimes you are there in front of public and you are just, he says something, you need to have your facts totally at the back of your mind for you to come out with something which can be checked and found correct. You can't open your mouth and say something which is. So I just thought that she was very well prepared, very well prepared. She had done her homework extremely well, especially where her opponent was concerned.
Yeah, and another thing which struck me about her was that she always presented herself very well. She, there's this comment about women, how you have to, like a man can just dress whatever and come, but a woman needs to, well, like do this and all that. So she was very careful about her presentation. How does she look?
And she looked as if every scene, or at least in the movie, she looked as if she could be the winner. She didn't dress shabby. There was no slouching around like, the one who lost because of the daughter, that insurance. I mean, she was wearing those deep t-shirts with her cleavage showing. I mean, I'm not saying that it's wrong to dress up like that, but this Alessandria dressed up for success. She was dressing up as if she's expecting to win. So I think that was another important takeaway,
Yeah, and also what was impressive for her was that when she was talking to people who are not going to support her, right, and who are telling her that, look, what are you doing? Like, why are you even going up against this guy? How are you going to win? So she took it very well, right? She wasn't like, because even her body language, her face and all that. And she makes a comment saying it's very difficult to keep smiling. And there's this little niece also who's, handing out these pamphlets and and saying, so this whole thing about dealing with rejection, I thought was very important, and brought out very well in the movie, because that's going to be part of the process, There are going to be people who tell you all kinds of things. And, if you go 10 times, maybe 2 people will say, and, then gradually it'll grow and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was very interesting. And then the attention to detail, right? So if you look in the movie, they talk about how they're, they needed 1,250 petitions or something to get onto the thing, and then how they got all of them, and then they were doing this petition cleaning and checking, because they said that this guy is going to, everybody's in his pocket, okay, in that whole area. So if there's anything he can do to even stop me from getting on the ballot, he's going to do it, right? So they might even sue me for this, that, and the other, that you can't stand, blah, blah, blah. So she understands all that and prepares for it, right? So then this guy can't block her, right? Like in terms of thing, because see, to me, it's amazing, right? How can a woman who's a first-time person with no backing, with very little funds compared to a guy like Joe Crowley, and this guy is the number 4 Democrat in the US, okay?
Crazy.
It is absolutely crazy. And in fact, one of her supporters makes this point. So he says that I'm a Democrat, right? I support the Democratic Party. Once you get elected to the House, you're going to be a first-time Congresswoman, right? And this guy is established guy, right? He has the ear of he's almost, he's so senior in the party. So our area would be trading a very senior politician for a very junior politician. How does this make sense for our area? And then she has a great response saying, look, this is all theory. Like, what has this guy done for our area? He
Yeah.
keeps talking about Iraq and, this, that, and the other, and how he did this, that, and the other. But what has he done for you? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that was a great point, which kind of, so she had really, really done her homework very well. Maybe she had been coached very well. But one of the things that I feel, and which is why that whole selection process is so important, uh, if there was a brand new Congress kind of thing, that you cannot, in my opinion, and many people may disagree with this, but you cannot coach the uncoachable. Right? So, for instance, even in my Slack group, right, why am I saying that you have to do this course? Right? Because I'm basically saying that I need a certain amount of thing, like I need a certain amount of commitment. I need, to know that you're on the same wavelength and all that, because otherwise I can't help you, right? Because in my opinion, you're not coachable, right? So that I think is a very, very important thing. So same thing with IIM Ahmedabad, for instance, they have an admission test, then they have an interview, right? So this whole aspect of trying to get a lot of people to apply, but then if you're selected by this brand new Congress or brand new Lok Sabha or whatever, it's got to be a really tough selection process, right? And, otherwise you're not selected, right? And it could be this thing because
you can really learn from Lok Satta party's foray into UP and things like that. It was a disaster because they let all kinds of people become candidates, right? And everybody lost. I mean,
Even Aam Aadmi Party, Anita, in the beginning, of course, the Gine Chune the, and then they started getting people, pata nahi kahan se, and they went through a big dip in their popularity.
Yeah. So this whole thing of why are you doing this, I think is a very important question to ask whoever is applying, right? Saying why are you doing this, and will you be able to stay the course? Do you understand? Are you prepared to work really hard? I mean, so see, basically having been through IIT and I can tell you, right, that, if you getting in is one thing, of course, and once you get in, you will get out. But the other aspect is that if you're going to really take advantage of being in IIT and IIM, you have to work really hard, and and then you'll get something, and then you'll make something in your. So to me, this whole political thing as a career is very similar to this.
Exactly.
You have to work really hard, and work very smart. Right?
So I think that when you want to be an engineer, you want to get into the IIT, you work hard to get into the IIT, and then you work hard while in the IIT to get the maximum out of it. In this case, exactly. So we are talking about a training institution like the brand new Congress to get people trained to be political animals. And once you get elected, then of course it doesn't, that's just the beginning of, what you need to do, Yeah.
And a more relatable thing, I think, would be like the IAS, right? So the IAS exam, and you've been a civil servant for a little while. So the IAS exam is so difficult, right? Like to get through the IAS exam is really hard. And then they send you to Missouri or somewhere, where they kind of put you through this training and all that, saying, how are you going to be a capable IAS officer and all that. So now if this brand new Congress actually makes it easy for people to, because frankly, at this point in time, I don't even know how this whole process works, right? What is this election commission? How do you get a symbol? How do you give your a nomination? What exactly do you do? Then once you get elected, what are the things which are open to you? How many times does a councillor meeting happen? What are the things? How do you interact with the council? This thing. What is the thing about the, and what are things that you're going to work for? Right now, maybe as a councillor in Delhi or in whatever Haryana, wherever, the basic thing is that you have visibility, right? And you can make a difference. You can approach the media, you can do various things, and but it is hard, so when we say we want to elect good leaders, we want to start with people who understand all this, right? And are prepared to put in the commitment. And see, ultimately, I believe because it's a career, I think our politicians should be paid well so that they have no reason to be corrupt, right? So I am at least of this opinion that, if they have perks and they have a pension and, whatever else, uh, they've earned it, right? Even our cricketers get paid very well, right? So why begrudge the politicians as long as they do a good job, right? So my problem is not that they're getting paid well. In fact, I think they should be paid even more. But they should do a solid job for the country, and it's a very, very important job. So, I mean, like, of course, I come from a corporate thing. So now, how do we decide how much a person should be paid in the corporate thing? So we look at the importance of the job and what is the outcomes that can happen. Now, on that scale, the higher you go, like MLC, MLA, MP, the outcomes are phenomenal, right? So the person should be paid quite well, and then there's no reason to be corrupt. And then, I mean, like, again, comparing corporates to politicians, I mean, now there are cases in corporate where you're a CEO, you're earning like huge amounts of money, and still you're corrupt.
See, I'll tell you, Ms. Sanjay, I disagree a little bit only because once you're a political person, I think that the amount you can make out of corruption is so great.
Yeah.
That you can never be paid enough to, if you are of that mindset, you can never be paid enough to
No, but the same thing. So the same thing is true in corporate, right? Like, so if you are corrupt in corporate, like, so the amount of contracts like Hindustan Lever or Citibank or ICICI Bank or whatever, and there have been scandals, right? Like where, you can make a lot of money, right? I've been a banker, right? So I know I've been actually approached also at times with large amounts of money to do something not so correct. And these are things where you can get away with it also. That's what people think, right? So the temptations are there, but I would never think of being corrupt because it's not part of my DNA.
Yeah.
And secondly, I'm paid a reasonable amount. I'm trained. There is professional ethics and stuff like that.
Sanjay, it's the first part which is the important. It is not part of your DNA, period.
Yeah.
Period. But
right.
That is it. So when the Congress or the brand new Congress or some equivalent over here, which comes about, one of the things is that when you're putting up a candidate, the selection process must be also to do with character.
Yes.
It's not capability. It's capability and character, it goes hand in hand. So both of them are important.
No, and absolutely. So I'm again not an expert in how you select such people, but I'm sure there are experts, like, so HR, etc., is going to be very important. So that whole selection process and everything could be a very important part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a couple of other points, and then I think we should think of winding up. So at least from my thing. So one of the comments that, like Anita was mentioning, comments that which I found pretty good from the movie. So one of the comments was, it said big money is lonely, while I have 5 to 10 people who are with me all the time, like in this. So I thought that was a very interesting comment, right? Like, so, like, okay, you have all this money, but it's big money, right? So, but I have maybe not as much money, but it's from a lot of people, right? And a lot of voters. So that is like really, really important, right? So the money, I mean, like, okay, you may have a lot of money, you may do a very slick ad campaign, you may do whatever, but at the end of the day, this big money is lonely. So I thought that was an interesting comment.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing that I found was in the movie was that this person who was running against this one of the people was some Stephen Horsford, who was from a lobbying firm. Okay. And the person who donated to his campaign, one of the big donors was Joe Crowley. Okay. And the movie asks this question saying, why did Joe Crowley donate to the Stephen Horsford's campaign? Right. And then it says that if Stephen Horsford was beaten by whoever he was fighting with in there, and that primary is before the New York primary, then there'll be this whole thing of Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez could also beat him, right? So of course the thing was all those three people lost, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez won with a landslide vote. So of course his calculations went wrong, but this is the thing, they will it's a war, and they will use all the ammunition that they have against you, right? So like again in IIM Ahmedabad, we used to have the case study method where a case would be discussed, and to me this movie was like a case, right? So you can kind of learn from this for your own kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's all that I really had on this from the notes. So another thing that was there was one comment, I think, that this Amy Viella, who was running in Nevada, made, that now people are going around and calling her a communist, right? So they're labeling her a communist because she has all these views about insurance should be free and blah blah blah. So your your opponents are going to call you all kinds of things, right? Because communist is really a bad word in the US. They don't like communists, right? So they're going to tell you all kinds of things, so you got to be prepared for it and have a very thick skin and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So anything else, Anita, or should we close?
I think pretty much. So one of the things that Neetu, I'll send you is a link to these podcasts that I've been listening. I just got to know them from Supratim, in fact, the other day. And it's a guy called Amit Verma. And I think the podcasts are really good. And there's a lot about civic governance and all that. And he's done them really well.
Okay, do please send me the link. So yeah, thanks for that. So I just want to recap. I've just taken down. So one is that Sanjay is going to make me a member of the Slack group. Then the other thing which we touched briefly on is that we just need to have some information about the local politicians, from.
So you're going to send us your location, and then we'll jointly we'll do some research on trying to find out what is the current state, right? Who are the elected leaders where you are, and possibly when did the last election happen? So when is the next election going to happen?
Yeah, and then you're going to send me the playbook, version of the playbook, and then we also said that we'll get in touch with the brand new Congress to see if they would be interested to
coach us,
or that would be interesting. I think just as a recap, and on a personal note, we'll just exchange the boys' numbers so that they could connect.
All right.
Okay, great. So I'm going to stop.